Welcome to the Super Smart Women podcast, where we serve, mentor, applaud, reflect, and teach to inspire women everywhere to be their best selves. I'm Karen Medina, your host, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Whether you're a first-time listener or regular subscriber, we're really glad you've joined us. Today, I have a very special guest, Pamela Goodwin. Pam is, she and I had met about a year ago at a conference up in Allen, Texas, and we've stayed in touch, and I'm really glad to have an opportunity to talk with her today. Pam is actually CEO of Goodwin Commercial Real Estate, is how you got that title. But she's also the co-founder of the Kiss Breast Cancer Goodbye Foundation, and I definitely wanted to share some of that story. But she's a very busy lady. She also is part of Deals and Heels Women in Commercial Real Estate organization, and she is in her community, Lewisville. She is the chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So definitely a super smart woman and a woman who is giving of herself in many different ways. So Pam, let me just start off first, and let me have you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Karen, so much. Love being on your podcast. Thank you for inviting me.
Really glad you're here.
To share my journey for now, gosh, what has it been? Like 35 plus years since I graduated from college, from Nebraska, actually with an interior design.
And okay, didn't know that.
Always wanted to do hotel interior design since traveling so much as a kid. And loved the design of it. Went to design school. I did get a job offer from JW Marriott to move to Bethesda, Maryland to design.
I'm not sure I would have moved to Bethesda either.
To Maryland, and I ended up passing. I wasn't quite ready to move away and stayed in Omaha designing office interiors for about 1 year, and then went into large shopping center development for the first half of my career. And then on the tenant side, working for Brinker International based here in Dallas, most people are familiar with Chili's restaurants.
Yes.
And developed more than 50 of those from the ground up. And wow. I saw one of the landlords developing a Chili's restaurant as an investment property and making almost $1 million on that 10-year ground lease, and found a mentor. I know you're big into that, and found a mentor, one of the landlords, and he helped me start Goodwin Commercial 18 years ago. And we're based here in Dallas, developing single tenant net lease properties, brokerage, consulting, and now really mentoring, coaching, and giving back.
That's interesting that you say that about mentoring, because I think one of the questions that I want to ask you with regards to mentoring is, as you found, you stumbled into this mentor, but there are a lot of young women out there that are actually looking for mentors. How would you, now that you've had one and you had a really good one, how would you tell a young woman out there looking for a mentor what to look for and maybe how to find one?
I always advise, I do have people reach out to me on LinkedIn saying they're interested in getting in commercial real estate. I would say what really gets my attention is the old-fashioned way of writing a handwritten letter to your mentor.
It's a lost art.
And finding people that resonate with you. If you're like, oh my gosh, I see her on LinkedIn. That sounds really cool of what she's doing, but I'm afraid to ask her. Don't be afraid to reach out to them. But I would, I like the ones really that send me a personal letter and telling me why, they would like to just either give me a call for 30 minutes or meet, if I have the time to meet with them. And then it always helps if you want to be mentored, because especially if you're younger, offer something in return for their time. So if somebody says, hey, Pam, I'd like to learn commercial real estate. Maybe I can help you with your social media. Maybe we could do some reels together. That always gets my attention versus I cringe when I hear people that want to pick my brain over a $2 cup of coffee. So
and don't put out there that they have something to offer as well. And That's so important that you say that, because a lot of young women don't think they have something to offer. But if you're talking to a woman that is our age, that is maybe a little bit older than 30, wink, wink, that we may not be as savvy with technology. And a lot of young women take for granted all that they know about technology, but it truly is a
Mm.
valuable asset for them. And I would absolutely mentor a young woman who says, if you'll mentor me, I'll do all of the, social media. I'll help you with your TikTok and real promotions of the podcast. I'll be like, yes, yes. Can we start
Right.
tomorrow? Because I think they might be thinking, well, I'm really getting something great out of this, but I'd be getting something great out of this. So I love that you pointed out that offering that trade. And yeah, I'm going to go back and reiterate what you said about a handwritten note, a handwritten letter. That is a lost art. Obviously, cursive is not something they even teach anymore, but even just a printed letter. I actually have a young student. She is probably, I taught her just a couple of years ago when I was still teaching at high school, and she's probably in 7th or 8th grade, and she writes me letters.
Mm.
She sends me a letter probably about every 3 months. And if that young woman said, hey, Miss Medina, can you help me with something? I'd be on it like that, because there's something about that handwritten letter. Well, I definitely I appreciate you sharing that. And reaching out on LinkedIn, finding someone that you resonate with, someone whose background resonates, whose whose community involvement resonates with you, is definitely a good way to source someone that might mentor you. But as
Right.
you mentioned, personalize that introduction.
And I still do that today. Some top entrepreneurs that I would really like to meet, I send them a personalized letter and I FedEx it, because FedEx, I can send it for $10. And it used to be in the olden days, we would send a fax. Probably a lot of people don't know what a fax is, but if you sent a person a fax, that always ended up on your chair and you would have to read it. So we don't have fax anymore, but we still have FedEx, and sending it priority. People are going to open that
They're
letter, and
going to open a FedEx envelope.
you can send it for like $10. It doesn't, and it goes a long way.
Absolutely. I love those recommendations. So let's talk about mentoring, since we're on that subject. You had this gentleman that mentored you, and you happened to stumble across him. What did some of that relationship look like, and what were some of the benefits that you got from actually having a mentoring relationship?
It, he had more than 50 years of developing property with high integrity and well respected in the commercial real estate industry. And he had also been developing the Chili's restaurant. So that's how I was able to meet him. And I just put together a business plan of how beneficial we could work together, what I brought to the table. And he really helped me out by, you know, paying me a certain amount monthly. Because he always told me if I had to worry about money, because most commercial real estate's on commission only, but if I had to worry about money, I could not be creative. So he really helped me, because I went from a six-figure corporate job, all the free food I wanted and all the healthcare, all that luxury, to, nothing. So he
Unless you
really,
got a deal, nothing. And that's definitely a hard part of real estate.
yeah.
Okay.
So
So he had
he
you on kind of a monthly retainer for.
correct. And so he brought me to meetings and helped me, you know, I mean, I had a lot of my friends were tenant real estate managers. And so I just, found some properties. But the business plan really helped with him on how I would get started on finding these deals and how we could both make money together. And then I used his, 50 years of experience, to help me get started. And it's wonderful, because he's like 88 years old now, and we just recently
Oh,
met.
he's still here for you to. Oh, wow.
And we
That's
recently
amazing.
met for lunch, and he's still doing real estate. And he gave me this card that I cherish. It says, "Do something for someone every day." And that's a great reminder from him of what I do. But I owe a lot to him, and just finding the right mentor like that is really key in your success of, what you want to establish with your career, personally or professionally.
That actual like relationship working with him probably ended a long time ago, but the friendship, has, I'm sure, continued. And I think that's something else I would want audience members to think about, that a mentoring relationship is not something that's going to be just for a month or 3 months or a year. A good mentoring relationship is going to last a lifetime. Those are invaluable relationships. I went probably 2 years ago to the funeral of one of my elementary teachers who was a mentor for me throughout life. And she and I had stayed in touch, and she was just a phenomenal teacher. And true, the mentoring relationships for me that have been the strongest I am still close to. So I appreciate the advice that you shared there. Let's switch over and let's talk a little bit, because I want to make sure we definitely get some good coverage here for your organization that you have co-founded, the Kiss Breast Cancer Goodbye Foundation. I know you have a big fundraiser event. I'm assuming also a fundraiser coming up in March, and you've had some recent celebrity endorsement with your organization. Just talk a little bit about that.
Well, it was 5 years ago, October of 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and thank goodness, stage 1. And I always tell people, make sure you're getting those annual mammograms. But, I really worked hard and spent my, whole life working and, looking for achievements. But after a while, that's great, but looking for something for fulfillment and giving back. And I actually met this lady on Instagram that I had not met. It was for something completely different. And we just connected. I'm like, I have got to come meet you. And I drove out to Nashville. She owned a company. I said, hey, will you give, I was thinking really small. And I'm like, will you just give 10% of your company in October for breast cancer? And that I had that little small idea, and I learned, it took me this long, the importance of collaboration with people. And we collaborated, and my small idea turned out to, and I met her in March of 2021. In October of 2021, we had an event with Dolly Parton at the Country Music Hall of Fame, raising money for Susan G. Komen. And we raised more than $165,000 that year. And to date, we've raised more than $300,000 on, I didn't realize I guess I realized it, but, regarding research, and I was triple positive, and how important the research that one doctor found Herceptin for the people that with my type of breast cancer, how important the research is today to just keep improving it, and praying, hopefully in my lifetime, they find a cure.
Right. So I had actually, before it was part of the Susan G. Komen organization, I had done the breast cancer 3-day walk in the Dallas area. I walked 2 years, and then I volunteered, I think, an additional 2 years putting up the sun. The walking, I think, was actually easier than actually working the event ended up being, but was a phenomenal event. And I didn't at that time have anyone directly connected to me with breast cancer, but I had friends who had family members that were battling breast cancer. And I knew the importance of what fundraising organizations and research organizations, and then breast cancer 3-day merged and became part of the Komen Foundation. And so continued that involvement, for a little while. But this fall, my sister was actually diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's actually undergoing treatment right now. And it's encouraging that the prognosis for a woman who is diagnosed with breast cancer today has a much, the survival rates with breast cancer 20, 30, 40 years ago was very small, single digit. And now we're in the 90% survival rates with breast cancer. Still a devastating and still a debilitating experience. You mentioned prior to your diagnosis, you're focused on your career, your achievements, where you're going. Then all of a sudden, this event happens in your health, and it's immediately just kind of pinpoint focuses what's really important. And so, because my sister is battling that, it has become much more near and dear to my heart. So I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing that's going into that breast cancer research, because, she's not out of the woods yet, but there is just, our daughters, our granddaughters, will benefit so much by the research that's being done. So talk about your event that's coming up in March.
So we had the Kiss Breast Cancer Goodbye for the last 3 years, and now we decided, or Susan G. Komen also wanted to do a big event in Nashville after what we had started. And so it's great. We decided to combine them together. So it's March 26, 2025, and it's Trisha Yearwood and friends. And she's bringing a lot of fun friends to the concert. It's going to be at the Ryman Auditorium right there in downtown Nashville. And there's still a few tickets remaining.
Well, I will put a link in the podcast description for anyone that is interested, that they can potentially purchase tickets if there's some still available, or make a donation to the organization that will go directly to helping with that breast cancer research. So, Pam, thank you so much for all that you guys are doing in that area, which kind of brings me to the topic of servant leadership. You had this event happen, and you had this idea, and it was interesting. I was talking with a woman the other day. It was like, how do I get started serving? How do I do that? And the advice that one of my other guests had said was, start small. You don't have to change the world tomorrow to be a servant leader, or to serve anywhere. And she was like, but I don't know where to start. And so how did you, other than, because this wasn't the first organization you were involved in, how did you get started serving, and where did you decide, and how did you decide where to put your talents?
I wanted to give back to my own community based here in Lewisville, Texas, and just went on their website because I heard that they were looking for different advisory boards and commissions to be on. And at the time, they had the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So I just filled out the application and then was selected, because of my real estate background, because we deal with easements and encroachments. And now I'm going on my 6th year, and I'm actually the chair of the ZBA. And I find it very fulfilling. I think part of it is because I used to attend so many P&Z and city council when I was at Chili's getting things approved. So I love finally being on the other side, but mainly giving back to the community with, using my expertise and knowledge. I highly recommend going on your city website and seeing I guarantee you they'll have some type of board or commission.
So that takes a lot of your time. That's the first thing that people will say, is like, but that's going to take so much time. Let's talk about the benefits. What benefits directly have you experienced in serving in those areas that you did not expect, that, oh, wow, this was going to result in this benefit?
Knowing how other people submit an application and listening to how people present their case. Like, for example, we had a zoning board last week, and we had a neighbor opposition. He was opposing a person who was applying for the application, and the applicant was really prepared with the drawings and the photos and everything that he presented, versus the one opposing. It was like, here, let me show you on my phone how it looks on, from my view of why I'm opposing this. So I really learned how to be prepared, how to fill out the application, what resonates with, our ZBA, the other people, and what we really have to look for when we're making a decision. I know the behind the scenes of what happens, for this now.
And I think that that's important for anyone that's looking at volunteering to realize that, and I'll give a specific example in a second, but the benefit that you can receive is often, it's intangible, right? You're not getting paid to be on these positions, but sometimes there's value beyond measure that you didn't realize you were going to get in serving in different capacities. This particular area happens to coincide with your career, and so you've gotten this insight behind the scenes look at how a zoning board does that in Lewisville. It can't be completely different than other cities where you might be working on a real estate transaction. So you've gotten invaluable knowledge that you probably couldn't have gone to school to get. You would have had to work at the city in order to do that. And this was the way to do that without getting involved. My example, and I love this for my daughter, students that are looking to go to college, when they're coming into high school and definitely in their junior and senior year, are encouraged by their counselors to volunteer somewhere. They're encouraged to do this because it looks good on their resume. And so my daughter had that same encouragement. And at the same time, she was trying to apply for a job. She wanted to work during her senior year. Well, she got a great offer to work somewhere. And it was going to pay, decent high school pay. She also got an offer to be an unpaid intern with the Choices Pregnancy Clinic here in town. And she would have probably about 15, 20 hours, closer to 15 hours a week that she would be volunteering and wouldn't get paid, or she could work those 15 hours somewhere else and get paid. There was a real lean at that point for her to go to something where she was going to get paid, but it was in food service. She wasn't going to go into a career in food service. She was looking to major in nursing. So I said, really going to mentor here. Mom is going to say, I really think it's important that you consider this volunteer position. Phenomenal year that she had working with that organization. It ended up being the topic of her scholarship resume that she was writing. She ended up with more scholarships awarded, I think, because of the over 100 hours of volunteer service in the year, and definitely solidified her desire to go into nursing. So again, volunteering benefits beyond measure by choosing to do something like that. Now, can everybody do that full time every day? Absolutely not. So how do you choose, Pam? How do you choose where to say yes and where to say no?
I feel like I've very strategic, with my time, especially after being diagnosed. I'm very, very strategic on my time of what really fulfills my heart. Even just last week, I volunteered just for the day for the world's largest toy drive. And it was at an airport hangar in Addison. And I wrote down 15 people that I had never met. I knew one person who was hosting it. I met 15 new people. It was a small group of people, and the networking was just phenomenal on me helping them helping, just I love connecting people and
coming
working
together too to serve others. Right. And now you have 15 new people that you didn't already know.
Yeah, and it was just a really great event. You just have to pick something that really resonates with your heart, and give it some time. You may volunteer for an hour or two, or if you see an event, I always reach out to the, person, find out who's in charge of it and say, do you need any volunteers for this event? And then you get to meet the people who are putting it on together and get to meet new people and giving back, especially if it's something that you truly, truly like. You might like working with animals. You may like working with children, like you said, helping in nursing. There's so many different ways, to give back. And sometimes it's 30 minutes. It's, you could do that a month or a week, depending on your time. But the older I get, the more it brings a lot of fulfillment, volunteering.
A lot of fulfillment, a lot of joy. I feel absolutely the same way. I now volunteer and teach parenting classes at the same clinic where my daughter got, this year of experience because of the relationship that she created. And then my mom moved to town and she had worked at a food pantry. She had volunteered at a food pantry in Auburn, Alabama, where she was moving from. And so when I moved her here, like, we need to still do that. So I found a food pantry for her to volunteer at
Mm.
and then went with her the first couple of times. And now I volunteer every week there because I love the people there and the connection. And we're actually doing our angel tree toy giveaway. I'm sure it won't be as large as the one in Addison by a stretch, but there's something incredible about doing that. And you mentioned getting involved in your community. If you want to be a small business owner at some point in time and you haven't started a business yet, you're still figuring out what you want to do, there is no better way than to volunteer with the Chamber of Commerce in
Mm-hmm.
your town, meet other business owners. Yes, the Chamber of Commerce members are people that own small businesses, but anybody with an LLC can join a Chamber of Commerce. But there's not a chamber I know of that would turn away a young volunteer who just says, hey, I just want to meet other people in the business community and I want to do it by volunteering. Okay, so there you pointed out that finding what you're passionate about, something that gives you joy, and then finding a way to spend your time doing that, be it an hour a month or 8 hours a week, whatever you have to give, finding time in an area that's passionate for you. I like that. So a couple of questions I like to ask everyone. Let's talk about some of your like milestones and achievements. When you look back on your career, what are some of the proudest milestones that you have and why?
That's a good question. Every year I do write down my milestones. I just finished that a couple days ago, writing my 2024 highlights. But I would say just overall in my career really has recently just been acquiring and purchasing property with my experience of we purchased a bank. I have a business partner, her and I just purchased a bank in Birmingham, Alabama. But I think just looking at some of my real estate developments in the past, but what I'm really doing now is I do have a passion for sharing my knowledge and to have other women invest in commercial real estate. So I've been doing a lot of coaching and training and teaching on that because women have a fear, don't feel like they can own commercial real estate, or I would love to do it, but I don't have any money. And I always talk about, OPM, other people's millions, and how to find the deals because the easy part is finding the money, but people find that as a roadblock of not having the money. So I'm, love teaming up with people who are interested in investing in commercial real estate.
The real estate market and the commercial residential real estate has always, for me, has always had this attraction as well. My daughter, we spend time scrolling and looking at different properties for sale. But you're right, it is kind of daunting. It's like, well, what next? I found something I want. The first thing that comes to every woman's mind, I know, is I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. But you pointed out something very important, that you can afford something when you use OPM, other people's money or other people's millions. So that's actually a good point. And that goes back to like not dreaming too small. Dream big if you're dreaming. And if real estate is something that you're passionate about and interested in, then definitely, catch hold of what Pam's saying here and start investigating how you can achieve that, not why you can't. It's not a matter of can I, it's a matter of how can I, right? What
Right.
is the best advice you've ever received?
I know I've received a lot of advice or learned from my own failures of what didn't work. I just like to really observe, what people are doing or how they made it. And, just reaching out to people, I think is always really good advice to learn from other people. And like I mentioned before, collaborating with people now is how you can grow a lot faster than trying to do, especially women, we're always trying to do it all by ourselves.
Everything on our own.
Yeah,
We are women. We can do it all until we can't, and then I can't ask for help. I'll just stop doing it. No, I absolutely agree. Well, let me ask that advice question a different way because I like to ask this question. If I put you in a time machine and we traveled back to when you were 13 years old, what would you tell your 13-year-old self?
I would tell myself to think a lot bigger. Some reason, in school, it must be in school or family, but everybody always tells you to start off small and then build up, start in residential and then go into commercial. Start, everything is small for some reason, and I'm not sure where we get that. So I would definitely tell myself, you do not have to think small. Like I was thinking small, we'll give 10% of the what you make, from your business, we'll give back. And instead, we just skipped that and went to, one of the large, we made international news of having that big event at the Country Music Hall of Fame with Dolly Parton by
Yeah.
collaborating with someone. So, small ideas,
And
skip
you
that.
you pointed out you went to her with a proposal of, you know, just give 10% of your, your profits in that month, which
Right.
would have, probably been, a couple $1,000. And you
Right.
ended up with $165,000 in your first one.
Right.
So, that small dream suddenly became a very big dream, and I love that. Telling yourself, to dream big, that you don't have to start small. You can start small, but you have a big dream.
Right.
And do you do goal setting for yourself every year?
I do a vision board, but this is a different
Okay.
one. I actually have a life business coach that teaches a vision board, and then we meet every couple months to go over that. But it's not where you just cut out pictures out of magazines. It's really detailed on her format of looking at, you know, personal surroundings to career to financial. There's all different categories that we break down on that of what we're looking for. So I do that every year and then, keep
And
up
then
with
you
that.
said you look at the end of the year back at the milestones of, where on that vision board did you, hit that mark. I love that. And if you don't have a goal or a plan in mind, you don't have a direction, you're not going to get there. And if you don't look back at, your achievements as well as your failures, because we learn so much in our failures as well, you're not going to learn. So a lot of the learning comes from that hindsight, and a lot of the direction comes from that foresight. So I love that. So yes, our 13-year-old selves are definitely going to dream bigger.
Yeah,
Um,
my number one goal, and it has been, is to have my own national TV show. And so every day I do something towards that goal.
Nice.
Right.
It was my goal actually this year was to get my podcast started. So, check. I think I'm recording somewhere around the 14th episode and have gotten 8 of them actually launched. So, it was a big undertaking for me. Not so much the technology. I have a technology background. It was just believing in myself and not being afraid to be a little vulnerable in front of a camera. I would worry about all the ums that I might say and whether or not I'd ask the question the right way. And there was all this whispering in my ear of, no, you can't. You're not. Who are you to think that you can do a podcast? You're not good enough. Kind of like those little angels and devils you used to see in some of those little commercials. And then there's
Right.
this one over here going, no, you can do it. Great cheerleader. Let's get started. But this voice would get really loud sometimes. And I finally just had to go, shut up. And and just do it. And it actually has been, very invigorating. And I think that's part of dreaming big is just, take that first step. I think it's one of the Christmas shows where, it talks about, put one foot in front of the other and soon you'll be walking out that door. I love that little Christmas show, but that's it. Let's put one foot in front of the other. So let's talk last question. Cause I like to give other resources, favorite book, favorite podcast, anyone that you follow. Share with your audience who your resources are.
I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and now I watch a lot of Joyce Meyer's YouTube videos.
Love her.
And she really helped me get through my breast cancer, and she had breast cancer, but she really helped me keep grounded while going through it daily. Because there were some tough days there, as you know, going through chemo and surgeries, all that. I still read a lot of books. I I actually bought. Let me see if I have it. If you can see it, I have a sand timer because I think I have like squirrels. Sometimes I get distracted, but I just set this. It's like for 13 minutes. I think it is about 13, 14 minutes before all the sand goes. But I will shut down everything, and this has made me read a book like within a week or 2 weeks just by setting this. Because if I say I have to read a book, I don't. But if I do this every day and then write down some key things I learned, have really helped me a lot. But who do I follow? I don't know. Sharon Lecter is one of my favorites.
Okay. Well,
And
I'll definitely go ahead.
And a friend of mine. So it's she helped with Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
Robert Kiyosaki's big. But I like just supporting my friends who write books.
And you've also written a book. I think I got a copy of that at the event that we were at about commercial real estate. So
right. Yep. I finished three of them. So
okay.
I'm about to finish my fourth and fifth. I'm finishing the fourth editing, and then I have another idea for fifth. I'm going to do it on something different, just completely different on networking.
Nice. A book is actually one of my goals, one of the things on my vision board for 2025. So, and it is actually connected with super smart women. So I think supporting other women that I know and the books that they have is fantastic. I actually have a friend from elementary school who recently wrote a couple of books that are fiction, Christian-based fiction, but tell really, heartfelt stories. And the first time she, released it, she wrote a book. I went out there and bought it immediately. And she was like, "Oh, thank you so much for buying my book." I think sometimes we get afraid sometimes to share that we've done something. It's like, what if somebody doesn't like it? But what if one person really does? Yeah. And that's kind of been, regarding my podcast, it's like, well, first I was like, well, I don't want to really talk about it. I don't have many episodes out yet. And I don't want to seem like I'm boasting, but now I'm like, hey, I have a podcast and I would love for you to listen to it. I interviewed this person or about this particular topic. And I think the same is true if you do something like write a book. Don't be afraid to tell the world that you have accomplished something. You're not trying to, for me, doing the podcast is not about monetary gain. That'd be great if it got wildly popular one day. My goal with the podcast is to impact women's lives, whether that be 1 or 1 million, whatever woman's life can be impacted and made better by listening to someone's story on this podcast makes it absolutely worth it. Yeah. So I love that you talk about supporting other women in their book writing and in their podcast and friends that you know. Well, Pam, we are probably beyond 30 minutes when I finish editing that. We could probably go on for another 30. It is so great to talk with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks for reaching out since we saw each other, last November.
Year.
So thanks for reaching out. And I always like to share, and hopefully if you get one tidbit by writing a handwritten letter to someone today.
Absolutely.
Whatever it takes, you stop thinking and take action. My hashtag is find a way. My other hashtag is never give up. So find a way, whatever you want to do, and get it done.
And never
Set an
give
end
up.
goal. Set a goal. So, set a date. Don't just say, if you're going to write a book.
Someday it's no, this
Yeah.
by this day. I love that. Love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. To our audience, thank you for joining us today. So glad you're here. If you haven't, please subscribe and make sure to join us next time as we continue to celebrate incredible women that are making a difference. Until then, stay smart and stay inspired.